Now we would like to start the keynote lecture. The speaker is Mr. Yukihiro Matsumoto. He is the organizing committee chairman of Ruby World Conference 2023, and he is a chairman of Ruby Association. As you are aware, he is well known all over the world as a developer of programming language Ruby. His title is 30 Years of Ruby. Matsumoto-san, could you please go ahead? Thank you. We are a little bit ahead of the schedule, but we can start. Again, I'm here. So I have a record when Ruby was first developed. I used to work for a company, and the senior employee said that he was about to write a book. Then the book he wanted to write about was programming language and object-oriented thinking, which can be learned through the programming language. And that was the plan, and he was thinking about that. He was a senior employee, and he knew that I was interested in the programming language. So he said he wanted me to create programming programs, and he would write the language, and that's how book will be made. So I was very much interested. I wanted to make program language, so I thought it's a great idea. I decided to do it together with my senior employee. Of course, I started developing language. Then my senior employee said that we used to work in a different business establishment. Then he sent me an email. Well, the plan was cancelled, so that book was not published. The development was already started. I started work on. Since I started, I continued, and that's how I came up with Ruby. Now, this is how Ruby was developed first. Because of that, I talked with the senior employee, and we thought about the naming, nomenclature of the new language. We discussed what name should be the best. Back then, Perl was a language which was very popular. Perl is one of the gel, so we wanted to make some name from the jury. Ruby or Coral was another candidate, but Ruby is shorter, and Ruby is more beautiful than Coral, and Ruby is more expensive than Coral, so that means that it had more value. And in 1993, February 24th, the Ruby was decided as a name. And we consider this is the birthday of Ruby at the community. And this year marks 30 years since the Ruby was born. So this year marks 15 years of the Ruby World Conference and 30 years of Ruby. So I think this is a milestone year. So my title is 30 Years of Ruby. Well, I think we have been talking the similar themes in the Ruby conferences again and again. So I do not want to have a mannerism. Of course, some people do that. I sometimes do that too. And I probably talk about that almost the same thing next week in the Ruby conference. But I would like to avoid mannerism. So I think I should talk something else from the topic I will share with you in the Ruby conference. So I now would like to talk about lessons from the history. I think you may know about this, but I love programming languages since I was a high school student. I studied programming languages, and I liked researching programming language, which exists all over the world. And when I found it interesting function, I thought of making a programming language in future and incorporate that function in the language I will make. So Ruby was the product I made. I think I was a language geek. When I was a high school student, I was born in Yonago, Toteki Prefecture, and it was 1982. There are almost no friends who was interested in programming around me. So those number of those interested in programming was very small in number. However, there are actually some. Already computer-related magazines are available. And among very few people, there are people who are interested in a programming language. And about half of the people who are interested in programming are also interested in the programming language. And out of them, 1 out of 10 would want to make a programming language by themselves. I went to college after finishing college, and I was too optimistic, I found out. And there are people who like programming language, like Java, Python, or JavaScript, or PHP. There are a lot of programming language available, and so many people participate in each conference of all the languages. Then, how many people want to make their own programs or programming language? I thought that would be 10%, not 1% or not 0.1%. That's what I found. After joining the college, I recognized that, but it was already too late. I wanted to make it, and I just cannot stop that feeling to make programming language by myself. My interest and love to the programming language actually led to Ruby, and however, my estimation was too optimistic, and I myself, I like a lot of programming languages, not only Ruby, but also other languages. So I thought I can learn something from Torivia, not popular programming language which exists in the world. I have a question. What is the first programming language made in the world? Do you know that? Many people consider in 1954 Fortran. This was the first one. I think that is the impression you have. In 1954, back then, computer programming was actually something. I see some message on the screen. Okay, let us forget about that. Wait a second. It's gone. So in programming, we do not have assembler either. So manually, we have to create binary and enter. So I did it in college. How to do it? There was a switch available. There are 8 switches, and you just on and off. And when you press the 9th switch, you can just write the program. So it's so complicated, and I hate it. So human beings used to do the programming in a binary method back then. That's inhuman. Therefore, compiler technology became available so that human being can make expression like letters and formula, and that can be compiled into programming language. That is a compiler. That was the year 1954. Back then, the formula converting to binary, this was considered to be artificial intelligence back then. That was a concept in the past. And that is the history we share all. However, even before that, we used to have programming language. In 1942, that is during World War II, the Plankalkül is a German pronunciation. Back then, programming, the language programming did not exist back then. And Plankalkül means a calculation plan. That's what it's meant in English. I'm not sure because it's German. So this is what they call programming. And the person who designed Plankalkül was an engineer named Konrad Zuse, Germany. Z3 Z3, that was the computer he made. And he used to make Z1, Z3, Z2. And Plan Calcu is a language for this PC, and they have design. And there's an assignment, and if statement, and loop. Then basically, it's so the structure available, and subroutine even available, array also available. Assertion already existing, and exception existing in 1942, and goal-directed execution like a prologue and other execution can be done. So it is what I heard. So it cannot be realistic that in 1942 to 1945 he came up with a report. That report did not attract anyone. No one noted his report. Frank Calcu specification was released much later, like 1972. So no one recognized this. Then that's the reason why Fortran caught up with this. And Frank Calcu's first compiler was implemented in 1998. So this is newer than Ruby. It should have been the first programming language in the world. So this is a lesson we can learn. So idea may be great with the Frank Calcu, however, idea itself is not enough for success. So useful implementation is necessary, and then that can be fully utilized by so many people. That is also the case with internet service. In the past, when I started programming, back then, there are people who talked to me. He said that he had a great business idea. Could you please implement so that we could share the profit? And that, so, but I just said no to all such offers. So just having idea does not mean anything. So useful idea is necessary. So it doesn't have to be perfect at the very beginning, but gradually it can grow. So implementation of idea is very important, but implementation should be completed so that that can be used by everyone and that can actually grow. And growth with users is a key point. That's one lesson I would like to share with you. Then, what is the most simple programming language? So like syntactically, in 1960s, Lisp, FOSS, APL, these are the languages of the past. Lisp in 1960s that was made, and FOSS was a language made in late 1960s to the beginning of 1970s. APL implementation was completed in 1965. The paper was issued in 1964. So Lisp, FOSS, APL, there are very few people using these, especially FOSS is very special because I think your PC also has a FOSS and EDEF and so-called bootloader program. I think you know that one. And FOSS already appears in that booting program. So while you do not know, but actually FOSS is functioning. And also, do you know PostScript in the printer? So that's not the FOSS, but that's influenced by FOSS. So PostScript is greatly influenced by FOSS. So FOSS is actually functioning. However, very few people have actually seen FOSS programming. So these programming languages are very simple but not become popular. And another comment by the developer of Perl, this is something made commented by Mr. Larry Wall. If a language is simple, software will be more complex because total amount of complexity is constant. So if programming language is simple, application will be complicated. If programming language is complicated, application will be simpler. So I think programming Perl, the book actually said this comment, and I just cannot find the book Programming Perl in my bookshelf at my home, so I just cannot find out the correct wording by Mr. Larry Wall, but this is a comment by him. So it seems simple is best, but in actuality, when it comes to programming or programming language or system, simple is not always best. Because human mind itself is complicated, and also the human society is complicated, and the problem to be solved is also complicated. So we follow the mental model. So unconsciously we think something complicated. Then we have to actually watch the reality. Okay, let us take a look at other notable languages. There are several of them I would like to talk. This is Ruby conference, but I would like to talk about these other languages. That's PL1. I think you may not know this. Some time ago, 1960s or 1970s, the COBOL and Fortran, these are programming language. They were well known and popular. And Fortran was good at technical calculation, and COBOL was just administrative processing. Then many users considered that a good idea would be to integrate COBOL function and Fortran language. Then one integrated system will be helpful. Then programming language 1. So people try to make one programming language which can handle everything. That was not successful. So if you combine two different things, it's not good. And there's another programming language called Ada. Ada Lovelace, who is the first programmer in the world, who was the source of the name, the Department of Defense of the United States, actually use this system like a system to control submarines or fighter jets. Such system were to be created, and multi-purpose language will be different. So one programming language can write all the system of Department of Defense of the United States, and that's what they meant. Then, after all, almost no one is using PL, and some people are using Ada, like a part of the F-33 is written by Ada. However, ordinary people do not use Ada frequently. Too simple is not good. However, too complex is not good either. If it's too complicated, human being cannot handle it. Okay. So I think there are various types of complexity. Just like case of Ruby, when designing the system, you want to need this function, that function incorporated, or some request and others, or because of your idea. Then this is so-called a creeping featureism. That is not like a feature is a function, and this function, that function, creeping, and further it becomes too big, and this is rather risky. And I think there are types of the complexity.
Linear complexity is still manageable. For instance, string class and one method added. That's a linear complexity example. But exponential complexity, which goes up exponentially, is rather bad. Combining two different functions And what happens if you add another function? If there are such combinations, that would lead to exponential complexity, which is difficult to manage. For instance, C++ template. You don't know what happens. A C++ template programming, then there will be 1,000 error messages. The nightmare. So that's one example of exponential complexity. So, as a result, sometimes people say that bigger the better, but for a system it is not always the case. That's something we learned. Then Perl. I have already mentioned Perl 4 times because I love Perl. I love Perl, but I don't like Perl programming, and I don't like Perl source program. But Perl, philosophically and psychologically, influenced me very much. In 1986, Perl was born, a lot older than Ruby, 7 years older than Ruby. But in 1993, when Ruby was born, Perl 5.0 was released. 5.0 was an epoch-making release. Object-oriented function was added to Perl, and also module system was improved and performance was improved. So it was an epoch-making release for Perl. So that was released 1993, and this year celebrate the 30th anniversary. Congratulations, Perl. And now 2023, what is the Perl version we have? Perl 10. It's a Perl 5.38. So in 3 decades, no major release for a new version. Honestly, for young people, perhaps they don't use or learn Perl programming is already in their case in a textbook only, and Perl community itself is worried about this situation. In 2000, there was a Perl conference, and there were thousands of people attending Perl conference, and Perl was very popular around that time. And in that conference in year 2000, they discussed what happens to the future of Perl. That was a meeting of the Perl developers and engineers. And one developer came up and said, with a coffee cup, he threw it on the wall. "We shouldn't be doing all this," he said. "If we are stagnant, we will lose the members of the community," he said. "We have to really rebuild and build a totally new Perl." RFC, request for comment. What would you like to see a Perl in the future? What Perl would you like to have in the future? New functions or innovative ideas? What kind of innovative ideas would you like to have in Perl in the future? And so the community solicited such ideas. And from the whole community, innovative ideas and others were proposed, and there were 361 suggestions. And compiling all of them, it was Perl 5. They decided to make a Perl 6.0. The people felt thrilled. They would make an ideal Perl, overcoming all the ills and difficulties. But Perl version, it's not 6, it's still 5.38. So Perl 6 wasn't born after all. What happened? In 2016, Perl 6 was changed over to Raku, a different language. From 2015, it's now 8 years since then. How many people know the programming language Raku? Unfortunately, virtually none, I would say. So it's not our community, so I shouldn't criticize them, but I have to say that their challenge has been rather unsuccessful. And this is once again an important lesson for us. That is, when the community is stagnant, the community is doomed. The Perl community knows it, and that is true of our community too. the man who threw a coffee cup on the wall, and he said, this is what he said. We have to do something that excites the community. Otherwise, the whole community will be doomed. Everyone is bored and they leave the community and they begin to do different things and they would find an interest in other languages. And that was in the year 2000. And I think this person has a foresight, real foresight. For open source software, boredom or stagnation are the biggest enemy. In the previous Ruby World Conference, I said the similar thing. And also, all the projects driven by motivation has boredom as an enemy. A community doesn't have a very big cohesion, especially for open source community. In the case of a company, there are employment contracts between the company and employees, and also there are bonds between the company and employees through a salary. So it's hard for someone to leave. It's a very tightly knit and a highly cohesive community. But in open source community, it's not the case. Some may be paid for the development of Ruby programs, but they are not hired by the Ruby community. Thinking about this, we have to avoid boredom. We have to continue moving forward. Or all the motivation-driven projects have to keep moving forward. And furthermore, open source community is very important. So there should be something that attracts people always to the community. And that's the other lessons I learned. And there is one more lesson we can learn from Perl. That is a second system syndrome. This is also the lesson we learned from Perl. When we are stuck, when we cannot move forward, people would say that we would throw away everything and we would recreate, rebuild, and achieve the goal. That's a very natural way of thinking for people. By so doing, we will be able to solve all the problems we have at hand. This is called the second system syndrome. This mentality of scrap and build, tear down everything and create everything anew, is an idea everybody may hit upon. But when we think of a system, including programming languages, to completely create a new language is something you are tempted to try, but in almost all cases, it was a failure. So scrap and build for a system is actually a bad idea. Rather, we should evolve gradually, step by step. I thought about the same thing for Ruby in early 2000 when Perl was actively being developed. Perl still had a very big influence. So in Ruby, I thought that we should perhaps try the same. For instance, Perl 6 idea. Ruby had various challenges, and in certain design we couldn't make what we wanted, and I once again I thought of throwing all of this Ruby legacy and start anew. And this is something I spoke in a keynote address in the Ruby America conference, and there was a word Ruby 2 until 2003 conference. All the bad things and all the deficiencies of Ruby should be changed, and we would rewrite a compiler, and we would dramatically change Ruby language specifications and make a completely ideal Ruby. That was the idea behind Ruby 2. It was a kind of a big dream we discussed. Like Perl 6, we requested members of the community their ideas for dramatic improvement of Ruby. I am really bad at taking notes of what happened, so I don't remember how many RFC we received, but that was something we tried, like Perl community. I am such a lazy person to manage things or keep track of things, and then over the years I became rather lazy, and I just decided to give up on this dramatic development of Ruby. Maybe this laziness of mine and my very poor ability of keeping track of things, perhaps worked well for Ruby community. If I were very good at keeping notes and managing things, like the people in Perl, maybe Ruby had been finished. But I think I had been fortunately lucky, being a lazy person, that we didn't embark upon a major innovation or change of Ruby. So step by step, we decided to improve Ruby. Ruby 1.9 in 2007, or virtual machine. In Ruby 1.9 virtual machine, as Mr. Sasada said, Yarp virtual machine appeared. This improved and performance 3 to 50 times the improvement of the speed of performance. 3 times is really great, and 50 times the performance improvement is enormous. Until Ruby 1.8, that were made by Japanese, and if in the case it was said that they were for Japanese. ASCII, English, and the Shift, EUCJP, Unicode, UTF-8. There were only 4 encodings that could be used. But we introduced encoding function, and today over 190 encoding. So many encodings can be addressed with Ruby. So we did a very good job, but around that time we didn't know what would happen to Unicode. But today, 2023, we have a text information on internet, and they are now Unicode. So in that sense, perhaps we made an effort in vain in that regard, but we made a change anyhow. Then in 2013, Ruby 2.0, not Ruby 2. I didn't say this to anyone, but I'm really glad that they gave up on the idea of Ruby 2. And Ruby 2.0 came out in 2013, and a 20th year from the birth of Ruby. So we have made a step-by-step improvements, keyword arguments, and refinement added as a new function. And personally, I like module prepend. That's a Ruby 2.0. And when the 2.0, the kind of functions I wanted to have for years, about 60% of them were implemented on Ruby 2.0. So it gives me a sense of satisfaction. In 2020 here, in the year of Tokyo Olympics, I remember that I announced that the Ruby 3.0 would be released, but no one knew in that time that Tokyo Olympic Games was going to be delayed. Now, keyword argument, it was improved, and pattern matching. That was a function I wanted to have for years, and that is now realized. And JIT, just-in-time compiler, with the native code. Ruby can achieve a faster performance, and it was there from 1.6, but on a production scale, JIT was introduced, and heat compaction, a new function also. So Ruby 3.0 was released. So the functions I had wanted to have for years, 90% of them were implemented on this version, Ruby 2.0.
From Ruby 1.9 to from Ruby 1.9 through Ruby 2.0, I think duration of time between the two is 6 to 7 years. Ruby 2.0 to Ruby 3.0, about 7 years. 7 years. I think every 7 years, major change have been made. Then, according to that, probably 7 years later, 2027, Ruby 4.0 will be released. Is it true? And talking about Ruby version, it's actually released every year, like a Ruby 3.1, 3.2, and this year, December 3.3, will be released. Without any special reason, it's released every year. This is my own way of thinking. Ruby's version number is just 1 digit. Like in case of Perl, 5.38, it's a 2-digit number. And alphabetically, 1.0, next should be 1.1 or, and then 1.10, and that's something I don't like it. I want to keep it single digit. By single digit increase, then 2029, 3.9 will be available. Now what's next? I do not want to have that 3.10. Then it should be 4.0. So by 2030, we should do something about it. Now, I'm not sure what's happening. As I mentioned, I think we created which we wanted. And however, something missing still now, that is a package system. And I hope to design package system. If that is the case, we can call it 4.0. Another thing, and 15 years have passed, so I'm getting old. I know I'm getting old now. Because of that, I think I have to think about successor. For example, in PHP language, they have the kind of the committee system in PHP. And Python, in 2014, 4 years ago, their Grid1 Rossum, first developer, retired. And then we wonder what to do about them. Then the 5-member team, that the steering committee was established. Then with the consensus of these members, decision is made. And every year, Perl conference voting will be held to select steering committee members. It's democratic, but is it really good for programming language development? So including that kind of option, we have to think about future of Ruby. And in coming 4 years or in several years, we have to think about the future course of Ruby. So based on the lessons we learned, I would like to talk about future of Ruby. So lessons we learned, idea itself is not enough, not valuable. And simple is not always best. And bigger size or bigger specification is not always better. And if people bored, the community will be disbanded. Motivation is very important, and we should be aware of second system syndrome. And we need to have progress gradually, step by step. Then, what we need for future, in order for survival, we have to make effort. Then, what do we need to survive? What do we need for Ruby community to survive? So we have 30 years of the history of Ruby. In order for Ruby to survive 30 years more, and my initial title of this slide was 100 years. I thought that's too much. So 30 years. So how to keep Ruby alive for next 30 years? I might be still alive 30 years from now. Let's talk about assumptions. Number 1, human being should survive. So survival of human beings is a must. If the human being extincts, there's no Ruby remaining. And if no one's programming 30 years from now, That would be a problem. In the world of Star Trek, as far as we see drama, no one is programming. People just call computer. And computer, could you display something? Then computer does. So 30 years from now, do we still have programming alive? That's a big question. So let's have an assumption that programming still survive. And 3 years from now, we are not sure whether or not we are using a programming language to make program. Probably we will, because we have done for the past 6 years, so we are going to do it for the coming 30 years. And upon those assumptions, we can say that whatever might happen, 30 years ago, we need community. We just cannot do anything alone by ourselves. And community needs a metabolism that a new generation, new people, new blood are necessary. So if we do not do anything, no one is coming in, then the average age of the community members increase 1 year by year. And 100 from now, no one will be remaining. But if we have new members every year, then average age will decline and the community will keep moving. I'm very happy about Ruby community. That is, still younger people joining us. I'm really glad to say that. The other day I attended Ruby conference in the United States. One of the frequently asked questions is as follows. Who are here in this conference for the first time? And I have not been to the United States for some time. So could you please raise hand if you are attending this conference for the first time? Yes, thank you. I think a large number of people, thank you for raising hand. That means, like this, we have new members, a new generation interested in Ruby or interested in participant RubyWorld conference. So this means that we have new blood, new generation. This is very important indicator for Ruby's survival. If we have the same people every year all the time, of course we need you to come back again. But if we just have friends only, then the community will be dead. 100 years from now, we need new people. We have to attract young people. So we should be able to draw young programmers. Another thing I'm glad about is that these days there are young committers. And they are younger my children, and they are younger my Rubies. I think that is great, and I really appreciate such people joining us, and we need more such people. Then, as a whole Ruby community, in order to attract young programmers, what do we need? I think we have clear-cut answer, that is job and money. So in order for job and money to be provided for the company, Ruby should be attractive and valuable. Then, how can Ruby be attractive for the company? I think there are several factors: reliability, productivity, and efficiency. If we can provide these to the companies consider Ruby attractive and valuable and want to keep using this. So I think these are key values Ruby can provide to companies. Let's talk about reliability. What about reliability? I think most important thing is the asset of the community. The people in the community create diversified things, and that's accumulated and can be used. So that's why Ruby is valuable and attractive. So that should be continued all the time. For example, tools to use Ruby or gems, like Ruby gems, its number is on the increase. I think these are necessary.
And textbooks, tutorials, and schools, classes. Those should be opportunities for people to learn Ruby. and use cases. That company is using Ruby, and in this way, Ruby could be utilized more efficiently. Blog posts, use cases, shared experiences, all of them are also very useful. I didn't write this in the slides, but having such conferences in various places are also part of the community assets as they are managed and run by the communities. And productivity, I believe this is the biggest value Ruby provides. Ruby needs to be improved as the language. That means, and also we need to improve supporting tools. We already have a RubyCop, RubyMine, and Ruby ISP. But are they enough? No, that is not the case. There are room for further improvement, and through this, Ruby experience may be enhanced, and that will enhance the productivity in the use of Ruby. And one more important quality not to forget is the efficiency. That is the efficiency of execution. For instance, Ruby implementation needs to be improved. From Ruby 3.0 JIT compiler, especially from Ruby 3.2 YJIT, which is a JIT compiler of high performance quality. And once the option is set, 10 to 20% performance improvement is achieved, and 40% improvement in user application on server side, cost can be reduced. In this way, this is a kind of way to encourage companies' investment into Ruby. If Ruby is 10% faster in execution, backend cost, the number of cloud servers may be reduced by 10%. Or if you are running a big service like a Shopify, backend cost reduction by 10% means thousands and millions of yen or dollar savings. And this way, Shopify, for instance, would invest more into Ruby development. And that investment is justified. The same thing can be said of many more companies and businesses. So, 0.1% contribution from your company into the improvement of Ruby in any way would reduce the backend cost by that much. And if you become the pioneer, and if other people would follow, then it will be not just your 0.1% improvement, that will be multiplied by the number of followers. And that improvement would grow to 10% or 50%. So I really hope that there will be more investment into Ruby enhancements. And perhaps I think we have more or less come to the very last occasion or chance for getting a lot of value from the investment into Ruby. This is a kind of hype cycle. This visibility means popularity. When a new technology appears, that catches a lot of attention. Whoa, this is a great new technology. In the case of Ruby, 2007 or 2008, when the World Conference began, to 2012, that is the peak time. We had more or less an over-expectation over Ruby. And then from 2012 onward, Go or Rust, other languages, TypeScript, static type languages became more popular, and Ruby's popularity went down to some extent. But overcoming that difficulty, we have come to the plateau phase where Ruby is evaluated as it is. This is described as a plateau of productivity, and I think that this is quite dangerous. Flat line or plateau means there is no change, and I said stagnation is a sign of danger. If the stagnation continues, a Ruby community itself may disappear. So we need to bear in mind that we are facing a rather important and risky era. In Intel, they say only paranoid can survive. This seems to be their slogan. When you take a new motion out of a sense of crisis, and you can survive. And Ruby is a wonderful language. I'm not boasting. At one time, Ruby was over-expected and over-evaluated, and having gone that era, Ruby is now on a plateau, as I showed in the hype cycle. But this time of stability is a period when we are facing a danger, as we see from the past experiences. And all of you are here because you are interested in Ruby. At least you have invested your time and money to come to Shimane for this conference. I don't know whether this is something I should say to you. Rather, we need to invite many more people outside this conference to come and join us. Recently, when you go to a bookstore, there are a lot of books on Python. One shelf is full of Python, and next to them there are 3 books on Ruby, and this makes me feel sad. But in making a web application or creating a new web service, if you use Python, or would you like to use Ruby? Of course, this is a matter of a person's preference, but I would say that Ruby is much better choice. Then, if we lose Ruby, that means Ruby is going to be just a thing of the past, and that is not something we would like to see. So, let's create the better future. Otherwise, we will be forced to use something else. I wouldn't say what, but at least that's not a desirable future for me. When I say to my grandson that I once invented Ruby in the past, well, of course I don't have a grandchild right now, but if I don't like my grandson or grandchild to ask me whether what is Ruby, is that a gem or what? An old man would like to say that all of those services are made with Ruby. Of course, I don't like to have a sympathy from a grandchild, but Ruby has a potential, but potential doesn't feed us. The idea doesn't feed us. So to realize an idea, we need all of your power and talent. So we are now at a tipping point. Are we going to on a downhill course, or are we going to continue an uphill course? Because only paranoid can survive. I am happy to become paranoid for Ruby. I and the Ruby community need to keep moving forward, and we would like to keep community members to continue to be excited. And I would like to move faster. And for this, I really feel grateful to the companies for their support. In order for us to prevail in the world once again, in the language, we would like to unite and work with you, and this is really an enjoyable thing for us. Ruby has a value, and we would like to present a value for you, and we would like you to use the value and make a program joyfully, and would like to make a better product, and would like to make the world better. We would like to make the world a better place with the use of and the power of Ruby with you as a community. So once again, please join us and let's create a better future. Your power is what counts. Ruby is just a piece of opportunity. So we'd like to utilize you to utilize this opportunity under a certain direction, and I think that's the power of Ruby. So this is the end of my slide. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Once again, you are already members of the community, whether you like or not. Of course, if you don't like, you don't need to join us. But I hope that you will enjoy programming, and we will all enjoy this conference together. Let's move forward together. Thank you very much.
Now, we would like to entertain some questions from the floor. If you have any question, could you please raise your hand? No questions. Okay, let's have a lunch break. Okay, no questions? Are you okay? I have an impression someone raised his hand. No. Yes, one person. Let me bring a microphone. I'm Sam from Evil Martians. Well, people who want to commit to Ruby, from which level should they start reading or learning? I think it depends on the person's background. I think most of the Ruby is written in C. So if you are good at C, then you can read Ruby and core, you can read and learn. But other people probably have other methods, like a library written by Ruby can be revised. Or if there are any problem in the document, that can be corrected, revised, and cut as a pull request accepted. So if there are anything to be improved, could you please send a pull request to the Ruby repository? And we receive pull requests several occasions and find out this person is reliable or have a technical capability, then the scouting mail will come to you. Don't you want to become a committer? So that's how we do it. Thank you very much. In actuality, C code is a huge amount, and any tip with which part can I find it easy, or any recommended place to start? I think a bad start will be, there are some not recommendable one, like GC, parser, code generator. Do not go into that area. I think in order to do that, you need a black belt. But for example, string class method, like a method correction string class, or array class method, improvement of that. Probably that area will be much easier for you, the starters. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Or don't touch VM either. Please wait for the microphone to come to you. Would you once again raise your hand? Please wait for the microphone to come to you. Thank you very much. I am in the second year of Japan GD Business College. I am learning IT, and we are studying a lot about program languages, Java, Python, and Ruby. There is no class for Ruby. When I look at other computer schools, I don't see Ruby being taught. So as a foreign student, we come to Japan and we want to learn a Japanese language, Ruby. But unfortunately, Ruby classes are not offered in many such computer schools. Why do you think this is the case? In most such schools, when they decide upon the curriculum, they go to bookstores and see what kind of languages are occupying a large share of the bookshelves. Yes, the Ruby is a good investment. It gives our value and return on investment, but this is no longer a kind of a programming language that attracts new programmers, unfortunately. And that's one of the areas we need to make improvement, as I mentioned. Well, I often discuss with the publishers, why don't you publish the new Ruby book? And I feel rather disappointed and sad when I see their reaction, negative reaction. So those people are learning IT in schools. We would teach Ruby and we would teach application courses. And when the schools like these began to offer Ruby courses, I'm sure that, many more young people would come and interested in Ruby. I would like to speak about this with the people of such managing such schools. Any other questions?
No other questions? If you have other questions, could you please exchange business card with Matsumoto-san and ask him individually? He says that he does not like anything troublesome. However, he has a great power of the quest when it comes to something he likes or he loves. So I think that kind of the searching spirit is very important. Now we would like to close this session. Thank you very much. With this, all the program for the morning is completed. So the afternoon program, Ruby Prize 2023 awarding ceremony will be started at 1 o'clock. If you place the order for lunch, could you please go to the large exhibition hall first floor with a ticket? In this hall, drinking and eating is prohibited. Could you please go to the first floor exhibition hall for drinking and eating? Could you please use the garbage box on the first floor? The exit of this hall, there are some brochures of the sponsors. Please feel free to bring them. On the first floor exhibition hall, there's an exhibition booth for Ruby Platinum supporting companies. And two of them, AWA System Management, make a short presentation. 12:20, Daiichi Red Mine will make short presentation. And 12:30, Foreign Technology. 12:40, Ruby Business Promotion Council may make a short presentation. Could you please drop by? Leaving the seat, could you please take the receiver set for the simultaneous interpretation and return at the reception desk? If you need a receiver set, please contact the reception desk. If there are any problems or failure of the receiver set, could you please let us know? If you are going to use the parking lot of Kunibiki set, we do have the free chat service. Could you please come to the large exhibition hall on the first floor? On the first floor, exhibition floor, we also had a charging station for electronic devices. Thank you.